Hello and welcome to the Music Education Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Soundstorm Music Education Hub, and I'm Chris of the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra. In this episode, I speak to Kari and Gavin, who are running the New Wood Symphony project. Now, this particular project is seriously special. They're taking a space and rewilding it, literally creating a woodland, inviting young people to plant trees and create the woodland themselves. And then weaved amongst that, they're creating a symphony to accompany it. There's composition and performance elements in this outdoor space. It's really a multi-sensory, creative, musical project. Now, in this conversation, Kari and Gavin really sort of reveal the nuts and bolts of how it works, which I think is super, super helpful for inspiring others to go and create similar projects. But what I spent a lot of time delving into as well was the reason behind why projects like this are so fantastic, why they feel so great, why they work so well. On the surface of describing this project and other similar things that involve working with music and nature, it immediately sparks inspiration and kind of those creative, magical, wonderful things that we associate with maybe why we ourselves enjoy music and creativity. But I'm really fascinated by how we can explain and articulate that in a way that might be really useful when it comes to justifying doing this stuff in schools. I hope you enjoy listening.
The woodland is called Symphony Woods.
Symphony Woods, that was it. Yeah.
And the actual project that we're working on right now, creating music, it's to make a symphony. And so we've called it the New Wood Symphony, which is my play on words from the New World Symphony by Dvorak.
Nice. Yeah, and that, I mean, it's a pretty unique thing to do, isn't it? I think. Just that blend of nature and music education, would you say? Or
I don't know. I mean, it was sort of a quite an organic idea. It just started simply with wanting to rewild the sheep field because most of our land's very heavily grazed, and I keep sheep myself.
See, Kari, all of those things that you're saying are very unique.
Are they?
Do you know what I mean? There's not like, as far as like listeners to the Music Education Podcast being like, well, we needed to rewild the sheep field. Do you know what I mean? That's not something that an average music educator has to sort of consider as a thing.
Well, I suppose so, yeah. I suppose it depends what else you do in your life, I guess. And the sheep eat everything, and much as I love them, Gavin was very instrumental in persuading me that trees were a better future than keeping sheep. And so I started reducing the flock, and then we planted up a small section of the field to start with, and then decided to expand on it. And then, because we're both musicians, we started thinking about the natural leap to involving music, and then from there music education, because I suppose the whole thing is about passing it on for the future and for future generations, musically and physically with the trees.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, so the two things for us are sort of very complementary, there's a lot of synergy between them, and our energies naturally flow in both directions, don't they? And we play outdoors quite a bit, and compose outdoors. And yeah, we're working on a few different projects around the county. I've got 3 down in West Cornwall, which are all to do with rewilding and also community food growing. A combination of those things. And the music's just such a big part of our lives. We're going to have a whining dog in the background now.
Get him involved. That's great.
Yeah, we'll get him up here.
That's Billy.
Yeah. Billy's part of the project too.
Yeah, he is, very much. He's been here a long time.
So I think it was just a natural thing for Kari and I to find the synergy between doing something we're both passionate about on the environmental and community front, and to bring music into that. And there's a lot of enthusiasm. We didn't really look to see whether anyone else has done anything similar.
No, didn't think of it.
We were just going to do it either way, really, weren't we?
Yeah. And it's we've made it very site specific. I think that's why it feels unique to us, is because all the music is to do with what is here. So for instance, the symphony being 4 movements, we've taken 4 characteristics of this particular part of the landscape. So there are huge amounts of bird life here, largely due to my mum's passion for birds and bird watching. So we've decided to make the first movement the world of birds. The second movement, which we've started working on, got quite some way with it now, is...
the elements.
Oh yeah, the elements. Elemental world, which is very, very strongly felt here, particularly, all round.
Yeah, on the edge of the moor.
Yeah,
you get to really feel.
Yeah,
the weather
you really
systems
do. Whether it's heavy snow or hail in your face, or yesterday there was just like water everywhere. The whole place was just running like a whole river. And then when it's sunny, it's like really sunny.
It just glows with natural beauty. So all of those different states are marvellous and inspiring.
Very given to creative
very
work.
Energetic, yeah.
So that was the second movement, which is the slower one. Then the third movement will be the human-based stuff here, like the buildings and the farm animals, the domesticated side of the moor. And then the fourth one is going to be World of the Wild, so that's all the wild stuff, and including the plants.
And are the young people
animals.
sort of part of that composing and creating and directing?
Yes, they are completely key to the whole thing, aren't they?
Our approach really is to get them up here on a field trip. For instance, the second movement with Codes Green, which is the primary school just about 20 minutes from here, you probably know it. They came for a day, and we took them out on an excursion around the place. Part of that was just familiarising themselves. So quite a few of them came from farming backgrounds anyway, so they're very familiar with the farming sides, because this was a small holding.
Yeah.
But up on the moor, going out and finding all the remains of old buildings, and then finding puddles.
Yeah,
and
puddles were a big hit.
So we did a lot of sort of environmental recording of the kids splashing in some of the puddles, and also creating wind sounds using branches from some of the trees.
Yeah, willow sticks. They were.
So we were recording all this with iPads, mainly as video clips, but some of those sound effects have been extracted. I was doing that last night.
Yeah.
And then Kari was carrying out some strings sort of workshop work with part of the group.
Yeah.
Actually out in the open, out by the trees that we're planting.
So we had the cellos and the violins out up there, and they came up with a little sequence which they performed up there, and then they performed it again back at school. So that was straight from the moor.
So we went into school the next day, so that worked brilliantly. Out here on one day, in the school the next. And we worked on some kind of word games using Cornish names that they'd learned for some of the aspects of what we do here.
Yeah.
And then we turn those into rhythmic patterns, and then we turn them into melodic patterns. But each time just literally giving the kids some parameters to use and then letting them create.
Yeah.
And then we recorded what they created, which was just absolutely awesome. You know, that we were just bowled over by what they came up with.
Yeah, really.
Short melodic themes based on the rhythms that they'd come up with. And we recorded those. Then we took those back to our mini studio and recorded some of those themes ourselves, but 100% true to what the children had come up with. And Kari's played, there's about 15 different melodic phrases, and both done using the bow and using pizzicato. So there's 30 different pieces of actual music. And then there's all the bowing effects, which Kari got them doing during their string sessions.
Yeah.
So doing tapping with the bow, doing sort of sliding effects.
And tremolo.
Lots of different things. So we recorded all of these, and what they get in the end is basically a palette of a whole stack of samples, which they can put together. They can loop anything they want. They can use things individually, and they can put together their version of the symphonic movement uniquely as they feel inclined to do.
Yeah.
So we're basically giving them back their samples,
including the splashes and the swishes and all of that.
Yeah, every aspect, and their own tunes, and their own sound effects from original recordings, and putting those, then they can put those together flexibly and create their own version to the movement.
So we think we might end up with 15 versions of Movement 1.
Well, yeah.
Movement 2, sorry.
Yeah, which is absolutely fantastic because it just gives them 100% control over the end result.
Sounds great and cool to hear all the sort of nuts and bolts as well of the construction of it. But I think, like at the beginning, I was saying, Kari, that what you're sort of talking about is not that standard or not that commonplace. It's not that mainstream. And I'm really interested by the sort of physical relationship between the things that you were talking about. In fact, when you first started talking about how it functioned, you were talking about exchange of energy, synergy, these sort of uses of language that actually very rarely appears in like music education conversations that tend to be focused around, I don't know, more sort of linear, rational ideas. So,
you mean like specific skills?
Say that again, sorry.
You mean like specific musical skills, like curriculum?
Yeah, that's where conversation usually centres, doesn't it? And
the traditional approach.
And what your sort of, but even in quite progressive, so on this podcast, for example, I've had 70, 80 conversations. Some people that I've spoken to obviously could be more traditional in approach, more conservative in approach, but also very, very progressive. But even then, that the conversation doesn't focus, I think, around some of the things that you're doing here that I completely understand and are really excited about, but kind of want to delve into it more of explaining why you're talking about rewilding and the cycle of sort of giving that back to young people, and the idea of maybe ownership and the idea of how like music and even planting trees just works together. Because I think it's so many conversations, it's like maybe 2 or 3 people who agree with each other and like, oh yeah, I totally get what you're talking about. But there are so many people who are listening to this who will just kind of be wondering like why on earth that would be a thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Perhaps it's just about, like I said, about the future. Like both things are very much for the future, and well, the biodiversity crisis that we've got is, something that I am personally quite worried about. I mean, it can be quite depressing.
Yeah.
So to be doing something active about it certainly makes me feel a lot better. And then the best way of passing that on to future generations is to get out and do it. And if part of that is being creative, I mean, we can include art in that as well, art in general. But
because what I reckon in school as a whole, the idea, like talking about biodiversity, for example, that would feel that would then sit within the science block of the, and that idea again of mixing arts and science, or is quite alien to people. What's the benefit, do you reckon? Like, why is there any benefit of mixing those things together? Why can't kids just learn about sorry guys, there's going to be no butterflies for you in a couple of years, and that's enough. You know, why does music need to? I think that's what some people would wonder.
I think there are some schools and some people and some music organisations that are realising that music can be part of telling a story, and I know Gavin thinks of storytelling a lot, and actually I also happened to hear on the radio a lady speaking, I can't remember her name now, but the first female Irish Prime Minister, and she was saying about how she believes that the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, can most effectively be related in terms of stories. And that's how people relate to it and take it, internalise it. And music, I think, is a very particularly good at getting people to internalise and feel the emotion behind the issues, maybe.
Okay. So connecting to something rather than just being told that horrific facts that are just, oh, okay, here's some more bad stuff. Thanks for that. I'll carry on.
Which ultimately can become demotivating. But they say that you can only protect what you care for. And I think perhaps we've got a bit of a disconnect between us and the natural world now. And the more we can get people back out and relating to nature and caring for it, the more likely they are to want to look after it. And perhaps using art and creative ways of going about that is more effective, particularly, well, I say with young people, but probably goes for, we're only grown-up versions of the young people. Perhaps that's a particularly good way of going about it.
We saw how naturally connected these things were with the children who've come up here. The way we saw it happen really was by connecting them with the place, by doing positive, affirmative actions. They all planted trees when they were here with some of the Forest for Launceston people who came along. So there was another group who turned up on the same day as Codes Green, and they were here on the same day as some of the home ed children as well.
And that was nice to have the range of ages, because I think sort of older people and younger people working together is also very positive.
Yeah, so the children got actually actively engaged in doing something really positive and being part of the project, putting these lovely little oak trees in the ground. They took to that naturally. I mean, planting trees with kids, obviously, I'm sure you've been involved in that sort of thing, but it's just a winning activity. Everybody has such a wonderful time because it's just so unrestrainedly positive, isn't it? It's completely positive. And then by getting them into that mode where they sort of connected with the moor, connected with the small holding, connected with the new woodland, and we talked about that, told some stories. They seemed in such a sort of a receptive state to start creating and doing musical things. So the way Kari got them playing up in the field and doing short, working in pairs to come up with a short piece of music, sometimes a bit of commentary as well.
Yeah.
It flowed naturally from the fact they've been planting trees and looking around the place and making noises, splashing and swirling and stuff.
I suppose having the instruments out in the field as well was quite a novelty, because you don't normally take a set of 30 cellos and violins up onto the field and get them out and stand in different places and make sounds. So perhaps there was something in that, being actually there on the site and going, oh, well, we've got a cello up in a bunch of pine trees.
We also had a load of barrels, and we had the sheep troughs that we were using for
percussion.
We used everything.
And
lots of other stuff. So,
yes, we did.
But certainly having the instruments out here was an unusual aspect of it.
In fact, the drumming is related, because I heard... the vibrations of drums going into the soils actively stimulate the mycelium, mycelial network. Yes. So
a physical scientific interaction of music and nature.
Which is another reason why science and the arts, is an artificial division, like so many things where we've tried to categorise like people do, but often the divisions are unhelpful. and it means that people tend to stay in their particular area of interest,
In fact,
of specialism.
Science and maths is incredibly creative, and we shouldn't divide, like you say, it is artificial, really.
What always stands out to me, though, when looking at music and nature connections and interactions, is the lack of like not reasoning behind it, or rational sort of statements of this is why we do that. So even though I'm saying this as someone who is fully behind it and fully invested in it, but when we try and justify things in a school again, explaining to your head teacher why we've just been out planting trees all day and doing that, it needs a validating, measured sort of thing to go back and say, well, it's okay because the children have now learnt to play crotchets. Okay, well, great, we can do that. We carry on. But if you go back and go, well, actually, it's about passing the energy from the creative act of music and passing that to, it just suddenly becomes sort of so often like discredited just because it's not easily explainable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think as regards the schools, it depends very much on the leadership of the school, and I suppose I've been lucky in that I know a few schools around here who are very pro arts and pro experimental. Like the staff at Codes Green completely got what we were doing, and they were 100% behind it, and they could see within that there was all the curriculum stuff. Like you could go through and probably like highlight it if you really wanted, because what we were doing did by default sort of cover that as well. But
I think those schools are in the minority, probably. Perhaps, I think that school's a particularly shining example.
And I think also as regards schools, it largely comes down to budget as well. And, you know, I mean, I've lost some work in some schools lately because although they really understand how important it is, at the end of the day they've got a certain amount of money they can spend, and they have to prioritise against other things.
So we're paying for the travel costs out of a budget. So we're very lucky that we've got support from Launceston Town Council and from Launceston Orchard and the Rotary. Yeah. So they've clearly, you know, all credit to them, they've seen that this is a valuable project and put a bit of money in, which has enabled us to get over that slight sort of hiccup of schools not really having a budget, buses and stuff. Yeah. So just by overcoming that,
that was a big help.
It's a big help, but it still needs a head that's not so obsessed with sort of a linear route to getting the grades and the rating of the school.
That's very true. Yeah.
To doing something more holistic and more creative and more joined up, which I think we feel is the answer, but obviously there are very different schools of thought on that.
Do you think it helps interacting with schools like Codes Green, for example, because they are super rural, because they are families who might be farming families, or even just, do you think if you did this to in a city, London or Birmingham, do you think it would still have the same thing? Do you think there's this receptiveness? And also Cornwall as well, just that I went for a wassail on the weekend. Do you know what I mean? And that's not like a normal thing, but that is, well, you just said me too. Do you know what I mean? It's just that sort of.
Yeah. So I think a lot of schools wouldn't be as receptive to the idea because they're under such a lot of pressure. They're managed by academies that are basically business people, aren't they? Yeah. And they're looking at, where they can make the returns on the pupil's achievement. And unfortunately, they fall back on very old paradigms for trying to do that. But I don't doubt for a moment that using success stories like Codes Green to spread the word, and as you're saying, to provide some rationale that perhaps people who aren't so receptive could take on board, let the results speak for themselves. And I don't doubt for a moment that most children would benefit from this much more joined up arts and science, creativity, getting outside. When we all know the key to success is spending a lot of time doing outdoor learning. in whatever form. But obviously that's quite a progressive idea. Not in some countries, but it is in the UK. But I think having successful projects like this can help to spread the word. And hopefully there'll be more of it happening, because I don't doubt for a moment that it has an amazingly beneficial effect on the kids. I think they learn more and they learn deeper.
Yeah.
And they learn more meaningfully, personally.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
But these are untangible, is that the right word? Like they learn deeper. Like if I talk about a deeper connection with music, that sort of where you can play something, okay, can you internalize it? Okay, can you really connect with it? And that all of a sudden we're out in sort of fluffy land, aren't we, to a lot of people? It's harder to sort of communicate that. It's like, why is that deeper? Like, what do you mean that's a deeper way of learning something?
Yeah.
I think they take it on as a set of things that they value. Those things become entrenched as values gradually. Because they value the experience, they start to value what's involved in that experience. And having come in, got their hands dirty, had fun, done things they don't normally do, like getting up to their waist in water and getting really soaking wet and swinging sticks around, all risk managed, of course. It was an unusual experience for them, and I think for that reason it just it really had an impact. And I think as a result they were so receptive to everything else that came after that. They were under the spell of this beautiful piece of countryside and all the magical things it contains. It sort of put them under a spell, and that in a very positive way sort of led to them being much more creative and just open to the way we use the Cornish language. Just everything had this energy and enthusiasm.
I suppose in a way it surprised me, because I thought that coming from a rural background and some of them being from farms and so on, I thought it might be a bit home from home and therefore less impactful, but it wasn't that at all.
It was wonderful, because some of the boys, one of them's he's got 3 older brothers or something, and when we spotted this old kind of wreck of some shrapnel out on the moor there, he starts looking at it and he knew what kind of vehicle it was. So he told everybody, that's the back of a trailer of a such and such. And he had a chance to show what he knew, and everyone's going, well, yeah, we thought you'd know. Yeah. And he was chuffed as anything.
Quite levelling, I think.
He was able to put his bit of experience in. And it was just, people who already have got a bit more experience of the countryside still seem to just gel with the whole process we went through.
Perhaps that's what the music brought to it, was added another dimension to being outside that
they sort of became
unique.
They became part of the tour, sort of, didn't they? That they were telling people about things, and we were asking about the numbers of sheep and stuff, and we were asking them questions.
Yes.
And it was lovely just to, like it always is,
reverse the roles.
Yeah, to capitalise on people's knowledge, and that doesn't depend on age; it just depends on experience.
I really, I was recently reading that Rick Rubin sort of creativity Bible, almost, if you've seen this book, which is, do you know this book, guys? Or do you know Rick Rubin, the producer? He's done this book of, I don't know, it's like a creativity Bible, different ideas and thoughts on being creative. And one real sort of central idea from that, which is something I'd never ever thought about, and I'm basically ashamed for the fact that I hadn't, is that your creative acts as an artist are no different to your creative acts in day-to-day life. And if you like, when you get out of bed, that's a creative act, and your whole day is just the same as a composition or a painting. And that, which is so obscenely simplistic, but what you guys are doing, or what the kids are doing there, isn't it, is that sort of planting a tree they're like creative choices that they're making. And that sort of, creativity is something that we do absolutely with everything. And it's kind of giving them the choice of, let's make some stuff, let's do something positive, let's plant a tree, let's make some music, let's be together, let's be outside. You're kind of giving them agency of how they can create in their day. Maybe?
It's also like trusting them, isn't it? Planting a tree, okay, they know how important it is, they know how sort of the grown-ups are all keyed up on getting it right and everything. giving them a chance to do it and trusting them to do it, rather than saying this is how you do it.
Okay.
Obviously show them at first, but they just took to it so naturally, and then they were planting loads of them. And the same with doing this creative tasks afterwards, the musically creative tasks. It's just sort of the fact that you expect them to be able to do it.
Yeah, trusted them.
We're not imposing any of our sort of restrictions on them.
No.
It's just like, well, have a go and see what comes out. And if they're in the right frame of mind, as we know, all kids are born geniuses. And it's trying to catch primary school children before too much of that has worn off. Basically, I see it as that. But having total trust in the fact that they know so much, and that they're that beautiful, intuitive intelligence they have can go so far. And it's often the adults who trim it back. And what we're trying to do is resist the behaviours that we're sort of stuck in, that would just kind of unconsciously hold children back by the language we use and the fact that we're fussy over certain things, that we sort of unwittingly label success and failure. It's trying to unlearn all those things is at the heart of being a responsible guide for these kind of exercises.
And do you think you guys think that stuff is better because this is like a child's natural, intuitive environment rather than a synthetic classroom, whatever style classroom it is, because you're outside, this is where you're meant to sort of be?
I think so, but I wouldn't say. I mean, we were giving the example of primary school there. I wouldn't say that older children won't necessarily benefit as well. But at primary school, they're more open to new things, and they are just more open-minded generally. I think by the time kids get to secondary school, the amount of labelling and self-labelling has got become quite an impediment to them knowing what they're willing to do and what they're willing not to do, and all of the social sort of pressures on them become overbearing.
When this idea of I'm not musical, I'm musical, I like being outdoors.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't sing because all my friends laughed at me the time I did. So I'm not singing anymore. So we are involving some older kids through those other groups, and it'll be really interesting to see how the dynamic can be sort of developed that way. Just getting them out and having fun and leaving all the nonsense behind, basically, when they come here, getting treated as equals where they're capable of anything, really.
I think the principle of using exploration, and I suppose, people might say playing with ideas, is something you can use in other areas of learning and education as well. Like, I think having taught, I started off in the classroom, general primary school, but I now mainly teach instrumental stuff, especially cello. But even if I'm teaching other instruments, instead of starting with like technique and note reading, I'm much more in favour of letting them explore what sounds they can make. It doesn't matter how they're holding it or what they're doing with it as such. It's sort of more about exploring and experimentation. And I think the more kids or even, like any age people can have the confidence to do of that, the better the grounding they have for what they then go on to do next.
Again, you're starting with an expression of trust because, give them a violin or a cello. A lot of the time, maybe, no, don't touch that. Don't touch the tuners. You
don't take it outside, you nutter. Like, why do you do it?
We're only doing this string this week. Don't play the other string. We're only doing this one. Yeah. I've seen a lot of that as a music teacher. And you just let them play with the instrument as long as they know they're not supposed to bang it or swing it around or hit their friend with it.
It's basic respect.
But they it's like, oh my goodness, I've been trusted with this amazing thing. What can I do with it? It's such a different introduction to a wonderful.
I think it's more confidence building. I think personally, particularly thinking about like learning the drums, if I'd just been told just experiment, tap it, hit it, play it in different ways, I'd have sort of built my skills from the bottom up as opposed to trying to go in at a technical level, being really paranoid that I was getting it wrong.
Get that one sound that the teacher was trying to get you to get.
Is that the deeper connection thing again though as well, because the physical touch of it is much more tactile rather than...
you own the experience, basically.
Yeah.
That's what it is in a nutshell. When Kari gives someone a cello and says, what do you want to do with that? Do what you can with it. Have some fun with it. They own that experience then. Kari's not said, well, you must do this, you must do that. And it's a profoundly different relationship they have with the task then, isn't it? I think this sense of ownership with what they're producing as part of our new Wood Symphony is very much, what we're aiming for, isn't it? It's that feeling that it's theirs. I mean, it's not a new idea, but it's how we introduce that into experiences like that and hold back in our sort of adult, superior, kind of knowing better way. I mean, that's just something we've got to try and grow out of ourselves, as far as I'm concerned.
And then you can, they ask questions and you guide them along the way. And then, I mean, out of that group of children, 4 have gone on to want to learn either violin or cello with me on a weekly basis. And I guess then they've selected themselves to go on and develop their technique from that original experience.
And it was nice to acknowledge some of the other instruments, sort of learners like the guitarists. There were some who were having other instrument lessons, so it was lovely to be able to
they asked if they could bring those
as well.
So we said, bring those as well. That's
more the merrier.
Encouragement.
Amazing. Brilliant. Thanks, guys. I think that's a wonderful place to start.
Yeah, thanks for giving us the opportunity to tell you about it.